Wow, I knew there were no announcements, and that still happened so fast. Thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you to Leah, thank you to Adam, thank you to the wonderful staff, and just thank you all for making this community so great. This is an exciting reading for me. I was a contributor at Sewanee in 2013 and workshopped one of the stories in this book that came out a mere 7 or 8 years later. And it's just really nice to get to read from this book in a place that I feel like in a lot of ways made it possible for me. So thank you to this community. So this is a story that's called A Few Normal Things That Happen a Lot. A woman walks down the street and a man tells her to smile. When she smiles, she reveals a mouthful of fangs. She bites off the man's hand, cracks the bones, and spits them out, and accidentally swallows his wedding ring, which gives her indigestion. A woman waits for the bus and a man stands too close to her. He puts his hand on her ass with no idea that she is the first successful subject of a top-secret science experiment. She turns and points her laser eyes at him and transforms him into bus fare, $2.75 in cool coins. A woman is at the grocery store and a man in the frozen food aisle says, "Nice legs." He follows her past the broccoli and peas. "What's a pretty girl like you doing here alone?" Past the tubs of Cool Whip. "You got a boyfriend?" Past the ice cream cakes. "You don't want to say something nice?" She stops at the end cap. There's a sale on chips and salsa. Yesterday, she would not have acknowledged him. She would have moved on, feigned fascination with the cheeses, lingered over the pasta sauce, waited for the man to get bored. She would have left, buying nothing, the dark parking lot endless, every car disguising a threat. Luckily, last night she was bitten by a radioactive cockroach. Underneath her clothes, she's covered in armor. He asks, "You shy or just a bitch?" Her senses are heightened. She hisses at a decibel that shatters the jars of salsa, setting the man's chest with small shards of glass. Salsa splatters everywhere, and a chunk of tomato lands on the hem of her skirt, which is sad because she just had it dry cleaned. In the dark, arms full of groceries, the parking lot is beautiful in a way she's never noticed before. A fine rain drifts across the weak lights. The asphalt shimmers, and the cars hide nothing. A woman sits alone in her apartment where she can hear her neighbor, who is drunk, banging down the hall. She does not check her lock, tug the chain to make sure it's secure. Instead, she picks up her remote control, given to her by a witch. If anyone tries to come inside, she will point the remote control at the door and turn him off. A woman jogs on a cold day and a man jogs 50, 30, 20 feet behind her. They are the only two people on this path, a narrow ribbon tracing the river. It's her favorite place to run. She speeds up, and so does he. Her heart begins to hammer, and she curses herself. "Stupid bitch, people have told you not to run alone. You know better, stupid bitch." But then she remembers, thank God, very recently she was scratched by a werewolf. The woman allows herself to change a little bit, turns to the man and pulls off her gloves. Her hands are covered in fur, the paw pads black and leathery, and when she extends her claws, the man yelps and runs away. The woman rubs her cold cheeks with her soft fur. She breathes deeply and falls back into an even pace. A woman is on the subway and a man sits right next to her, even though there are many empty seats. The woman folds her small hands in her lap. The man takes out his dick and begins to masturbate. The woman stands and exits at the next stop. The woman's heart is not racing, she does not feel nauseous, and she does not wonder what she would have done if the man had followed her. No, when she steps onto the platform and the subway doors close behind her, the woman never thinks about the man ever again. This is her superpower, bestowed upon her as a baby by her alien mother. She feels absolutely fine, and she even does a bit of work in the evening before deciding she's tired and ordering Chinese. She sleeps deeply. A woman goes on a date with a man, and while they're walking to the restaurant, they see another woman bite off another man's hand. The man on the date rushes to the man on the ground, who's bleeding profusely. The woman on the date asks where the biting woman got those fangs. "They look great on you," she says. "Do you think so?" the other woman asks. "They're exactly what I needed for that extra boost of confidence." For the rest of the date, the man with two hands is extremely respectful. The cockroach woman goes to the bank and hopes someone will rob it, so she has an excuse to use her new and amazing powers. Instead, the man in front of her is having a conversation with a woman, and he interrupts her. The thing is, the man says, it's just too easy to generalize, you know? The cockroach woman considers ripping off the man's arm, but that would be an overreaction. She deposits a check and feels glum as she walks to work, her newly grown antennae vibrating in the breeze. The same man from before takes his dick out on the subway. He's sitting next to the woman with a mouthful of fangs. She freezes for a moment in disbelief, but it's really happening, and so she leans over and bites off his dick. She spits it out, no bones in it to break. She leaves it harmless on the floor and gets off at the next stop. She keeps her face calm. She's accustomed to ignoring the screams and the blood, but the taste lingers in her mouth all the way home. The woman with the magical remote control carries it with her everywhere, in her purse next to her pepper spray and a half-eaten bag of M&Ms, tightly twisted closed. She would never use the remote in public. There's no way to be sure that she'd hit her target. In a recurring nightmare, a man is yelling at her for messing up his order, a 2-shot half-calf skim latte, you stupid cunt. And in her anger, she shuts off the entire coffee shop, the entire block, the whole world, and she presses rewind, but it's too late. As she walks down the street, she enjoys a fantasy in which she slips her hand into her purse and presses pause. In the still city, she can do anything she wants. She walks for miles, down small alleys, through wooded parks, past the corner where the homeless man yells obscenities. But see, he's quiet now. She's brought them both peace. Werewolf woman has never before loved being in her body, but now she shakes her fur out whenever she's home. She's at her most powerful when she's naked. Sometimes, late at night, she stands in the backyard and howls, not because she's sad, but because her lungs are strong and it's a joy to turn air into sound. Her husband sees how happy she is, and he asks her to scratch him to turn him too. She wants to want to. She tries to explain to him that this is kind of her thing, that she needs this thing for herself. What she can't find the courage to say is that she needs it to not be for him. He says he understands, and she knows he'll never quite forgive her. The fanged woman eats a donut on a park bench, although the fangs make it difficult. She's in a bad mood. Her tongue is sore, her cheeks nipped raw, and her blazer is dusted in powdered sugar. She wishes a man would make some comment so she could bite him, but nobody does. The fangs, after all, are easy to see. She calls her friend, the woman who forgets. Most days I'm fine, she says, her S's emerging with a slight sibilance. It's just days like today, I'm tired. That sounds terrible, her friend says, though she wishes they weren't always talking about men. The friend who forgets picks at a seed stuck in her dull teeth. The woman with fangs dusts crumbs off her fingers and says she needs to go. A woman walks down the hallway of a large academic building after hours. She is 18, a freshman, and at least once a week since she's been at school, she's received a mass email from the college about a sexual assault in the area. At the bottom of every email is a bulleted list of ways to keep herself from harm. Despite the warnings not to be alone at night, she is there to pick up a paper from her professor's mailbox. When she gets to the mailroom, the door is locked. All this for nothing, and here is the stairwell again. When she was 14, a man in a stairwell stopped to ask her a question, pressed her against a wall, groped her breasts. She runs down the stairs, empty tonight, except for the men she peoples them with, and they reach for her like the branches in Snow White's dark forest. She hates that she's such a coward, and is angry for calling herself a coward. If her imagination were not occupied, she would notice a $20 bill on the final landing. She would pick up the money and spend it on a novel or a movie, maybe pay back a friend for lunch. Later that night, a sophomore man finds the money as he is walking calmly down the stairs. He thinks about a movie he's going to make with his friends, which they will shoot in the park at night while getting high. He will enter it in the college film festival and place second. Years later, he's a director of indie films. Luckily for the woman, she arrives home safely and the next day is bitten by a radioactive cockroach. Radioactive cockroaches are sweeping the city. She loves her new powers, but she doesn't know how to tell the man she's dating about the changes to her body. They break up. The woman who watched the woman with fangs bite off a man's hand gets fangs for herself. She snaps them at her reflection in the mirror. There is blood on the fangs just like she imagined, except it's her own blood from where her gums are still aching and raw. The government finds out about the radioactive cockroaches after the mayor's wife is bitten in her sleep. The mayor, though he shares a bed with his wife, is unbitten and unchanged. What a strange thing. What is happening? No one knows, and the infection is spreading. The mayor's wife is taken in for testing. The press reports that she has fallen ill and is taking some time out of the public eye. On Reddit, conspiracy theories grow and tangle like vines. A woman walks down the street and absolutely no one bothers her. She smiles at the other women she passes. They smile back. Something is different. A woman wears a pair of fake antennae to take out the trash to the alley behind her building, where she's always been too afraid to go at night. No one bothers her, except for a large rat who's plump and resentful. Now that she can pretend to be a cockroach, the woman with fangs considers having the teeth removed, but in the end, she's grown too used to feeling safe. What if the radioactive cockroaches prove not to be the answer? What if someone invents a special cockroach taser? What if the scientists who are hard at work discover a cure? She keeps her fangs and accepts that her mouth will always be a little sore. Fake antenna sales skyrocket. The men of the city do not feel safe. The women of the city play. They draw baths and hold their breath under the water for 30 minutes, testing the depths of their new lungs. They get very drunk on the beer that their cockroach bodies love and walk home under the stars. And when they see a man, they hiss and the man runs away and they laugh and laugh. Can't you take a joke, they shriek, and they almost feel bad because two wrongs don't make a right, but one wrong after wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong does make a cockroach woman feel better, reckless, and free. Men carry small cans of Raid in their pockets when they go out at night. It isn't enough, not by a long shot, but the men hold the cans tightly in their hands like talismans. With all women wearing antennae now, there's no way to tell which ones may actually be dangerous. The woman who forgets and the woman with fangs get coffee, and the woman who forgets tells the woman with fangs that she doesn't understand this new fashion trend. I tried on a pair, she says, but they flattened my hair and gave me a headache. The woman with fangs is on antibiotics. One of her teeth has developed an abscess. Headaches are the worst, she says, and begins to cry. A man cuts off the head of his cockroach girlfriend while she's sleeping. She staggers upwards, attacks and kills him, and still has a whole week left to live. She walks down the city streets holding her head under her arm so that she can see where she's going. She writes an article for BuzzFeed about embracing the time she has left. But the truth is, her severed throat is tight with terror. She wishes she had died 3 days ago, that she'd never become a cockroach to begin with. There is nothing worse than knowing that the man she loved cut off her head, except the fact that killing him has not made her whole again. 2 women inventors are in their secret lab full of radioactive cockroaches. They wear long white gloves and thick goggles. Their long white coats and thick goggles. Their red rubber gloves go up to their elbows. I hope we did the right thing, one of them says, as she gently injects a new serum into a cockroach, then places him in jar number B872. I think buying the changing table for Mariana was the perfect choice, the other replies, her head bent over a beaker, waiting for the orange liquid to cool. They work long hours and are always relieved when it's time to go home. They talk about plans for the evening as they peel off their goggles and gloves and coats. Under their clothes, they are mosaics of failed experiments. Scars across cheeks, toenails hardened into claws, patches of skin turned to stone and fur and scales. One woman has the interlocking armor of an armadillo down her spine. The other has a single wing that can't unfold all the way. The feathers clog her shower drain. The women step outside, put on their fake antennae, and walk home holding hands. A man coming toward them nods respectfully and gives them a wide berth. They smile at each other, not evil smiles, but not nice ones either. They feel good and safe, but not as good and safe as they'd imagined they would. They are distracted from the stars and the cool night air, by the places on their bodies that burn and pull and pinch, the itching that never stops. They are proud of what they've done, but still sometimes they wish they could be smooth and whole, some softer version of themselves. Thank you very much. And next up, Adam Latham. Woo, Adam!
Hey, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Leah and Gwen. It's an honor to read with you. It's even more of an honor to work with you. And thank you to the amazing staff. Y'all are incredible in my family, and I appreciate y'all very much. I'm going to read a short story, actually the first half of a short story called The Goddamn Sorcerer of Love. And here we go. The dog seller hawks mangy curs across from me at the flea market. Misty brings me a cherry slushie like she's a woman who takes care of her man. Don't think I don't notice she makes a big show of it for Mr. Dog Seller. The son of a bitch wears clean overalls. He's bigger than everyone else, muscly, and has a braided goatee. It looks like a shriveled snake biting his chin, I say. Misty says, I think it makes him look like a Viking. I want to soak his goatee in gasoline. I'm thinking fuse. I'm thinking light that sucker and maybe his head explodes. The guy's a real talker. I'm suspicious, as if he's stolen something the rest of us need. We're an economy outside the mainstream. Tables of outdated processed food, goats, chickens, geese, rabbits, poop-splattered eggs, cash only. The people, my people. Dark whites, scrunched faces, dusty smokers, cancer-ridden, palmilla hats, guns and ammunition, dying trucks and flashy new motorcycles, mountain people. And then there's this guy. I'm sure he fights dogs. He has a giant one, white, chained to his table. Half wolf, he says. It's a magnificent animal, a dog Jason Velasquez would be in another life. Jason Velasquez is the greatest male romance cover model of all time. He beats the shit out of Fabio. If I could hold all the beautiful women that Jason Velasquez has held, I would be a happy man. I sell used romance books. Historical, contemporary, Western, suspense, even erotic. Misty doesn't read them anymore. She's into reality TV nowadays. She binge watches matchmaking shows like The Bachelorette. She criticizes connections as in they don't have a connection, like she's an expert on connections. I've taken to deer hunting out of season. I don't even bring my rifle. I just carry novels up my deer stand to sit in the hickories for peace of mind. I don't enjoy romances anymore, not even the covers. But I take pride in knowing my inventory. I gloss over chit-chat and study passion scenes as if they might contain the secret to saving our relationship. I sit on a camo cushioned chair 20 feet up a pig nut with a romance book stacked around me, and I'm a goddamn sorcerer of love. But lately, it all sounds the same to me. All heavy bosoms and love muscles that move the ground beneath whatever Scottish or ranch people are getting some. My heart isn't in it now. I'm hungover and not very talkative. Bored, Misty walks over to the dog seller's booth. Irked, I follow. The guy smiles. He acts as if he owns the place even though he's a new vendor. He keeps his eyes focused on me the whole time. Misty cocks her hips and tilts her head. She can't stand being ignored. She runs her fingers through her hair. Beau Prince, the guy says, and shakes my hand like it's a hand-breaking competition. Dan, I say. Prince Beau takes me to his car and jerks out a squat speckled dog with droopy tits from the back seat. This here's a blue heeler, he says. She killed 2 coyotes last week. I'm like, right, guy, whatever you say. How did she kill them, I ask, calling him out. Beau doesn't blink. Coyotes hunt in packs. She splits them up and gets them by their throats and rolls them till they're dead. 2 coyotes last week. She's sweet with people, but when she meets a coyote, it's a bad day for coyotes. I don't believe half of what the guy says, but the bitch has a scar on her nose. She stands stiff under his command. She is undeniably a badass. I can't stand coyotes, I say. They run all over my place. $150, Beau says. The healer looks me in the eyes. We want no part of each other. 100, Beau says. Misty kneels beside a puppy cage. You better wash your hands touching those things, I say, and pull her back to our booth. What's got under your skin? I start packing up my romance books and Misty's discount healing crystals. Before that, it was incense. She's always looking for something new to sell. She says I don't have vision, but she just hasn't found her niche yet. It takes me a few trips carrying my boxes out to the car. I'm flushed and sweaty, but calm down. I'm ready to go when Misty walks into the parking lot. She's carrying the blue heeler. She smashes the dog to her breasts. Its legs stick straight down funny. The dog has a freaked out look in its eyes. Oh, hell no, I say. Take that back now. The hell I will, she says. She looks hurt. She gets into the front seat and holds the heeler to her chest. The dog smells like bad bologna. I roll down my window and spin gravel out the parking lot. I don't act like trash unless I'm pissed, and then I can't help it. Misty rubs the dog's eyebrows as if it's got a headache. I feel a migraine coming on myself. Pete needs someone to play with, Misty says as we drive back up the cove to my house. Pete's my boxer mix, a stocky old boy we both love. Misty treats him like a lap dog. She has an Alabama roll tide blanket she keeps folded under the coffee table. She calls it the invitation blanket. When she gets out the invitation blanket, it's okay for Pete to climb up on the sofa and lie on her. It's been a long time since Misty has pulled out the quote-unquote invitation blanket for me. There's a crimson-sized elephant in our relationship. The bigger it gets, the more impossible it becomes to confront. Like if I said, hey, I love you, let's have sex, something straightforward and heartfelt, the elephant would crash down and ruin us. If I close my eyes, I can make myself go crazy with the thought of her breasts brushing my chest, her hair hanging in my face. In caresses of the cauldron, witches in the Middle Ages slept in nests of stolen penises. I hurt so bad, I believe it. The first time I saw Misty, she was eating breakfast at Hardee's, thin blonde hair and stonewashed jeans. I drew upon my vast well of romance knowledge. I summoned Jason Velasquez. What would Jason do, I asked. WWJD. I walked up to Misty and asked if I could join her. My coffee burned my tongue. I waited for it to cool down. You want some hash browns? I said. I was thinking maybe you're still hungry. She shook her head. How about a refill then? Sure, I guess. I jumped up to get it. What do you do, she said when I sat back down. Romance. She spat out her orange juice. I didn't mean to laugh. I sell romance books. Oh. Romances, I said, have central love stories and emotionally satisfying endings. That's what makes them romances. Misty sits on one end of the couch with the blue heeler in her lap. I sit on the other, flipping through my romance inventory. Coyotes start yipping behind the house. They come down from the mountain at night and sound like wolves on helium. Pete's ears perk up, but the blue heeler doesn't do shit. It lies there on Misty's lap, and I can't stand it. Pete, a good boy all these years, playing by the rules, and that blue heeler in her lap without the invitation blanket. I pick up the blue heeler by the scruff of its neck and stomp outside. What the hell do you think you're doing, Misty says. The dog hangs in the air, eyes rolling back. I drop her in the yard. Go kill some dang coyotes, I say, expecting her to waddle back to the door and whine. The yipping kicks up again, and the heeler tears off back, barking after the coyotes. I'm thinking, shit. Misty runs into the yard. Angel, she shouts, come back. She didn't even tell me she named the damn thing. Whoops, I say. I didn't think she'd go after them. Misty shoves me in the chest and starts crying. I didn't buy the dog to kill coyotes, she says. I thought you wanted it. I might have finally done it. I shout after the heeler, but the dog's gone, and I go back inside. Misty's locked the door to our bedroom. I stand there for a while, shrug, and sleep on the couch. Misty drags herself into the living room in the morning. Her eyes are red, face puffy. Tell me, she says, when does a romance suck? I mull it over. When there's too many raised eyebrows. At the right moment, raising eyebrows tightens tension between the hero and heroine, but if someone raises an eyebrow every time someone says something, the book's probably not any good. It's true. Misty shakes her head. You're unbelievable. She doesn't speak to me all the way to the flea market. We sit in the parking lot. I don't feel like working to start my car to leave. No, Misty says. We're going. I'm getting my money back on that blue heeler. No one gives refunds at a flea market, I say. The dog's probably in the next county by now. Don't you worry, Misty says. I set up my table. Misty walks over to Bo. She's business, all right. None of that flirty stuff she had done when he ignored her. She lets him have it. She screams at him, chews his ass out. Good on her. People stare. Misty looks like she's about to hit him. Misty stands there taking it. Bo stands there taking it, so shocked he can't do anything but smile. She spits in the dirt and storms back. The white wolf drops its head. He'll return the money, Misty says. She sits at our table the rest of the morning, reading a Western romance, face flushed as it hasn't been in a long time. I'm thinking maybe we'll break through in the love department, maybe even this afternoon. We won't even have to drink first. But Misty drives over to Bo's house and moves right in with them. It's in my best interest to avoid hard liquor. I'm keeping a strict regimen of 2 24-ounce cores per day. I drink them slow at night, driving past Bo's double wide on the ridge. 3 times I see Misty, once in her bra, and it nearly kills me. There's a kennel beside his house and a barn in back where cars gather on Wednesday nights. Sometimes I see the white wolf in the yard. I wonder if the white wolf gets the invitation blanket, but I know the answer to that. The invitation blanket is back at my place under the coffee table where Misty left it. I wrap it around my shoulders and stand beside a barrel fire, burning romance books page by torn out page. I catch a whiff of something dead, rotten. It's been a while since I've heard coyotes. Bo's clean yard doesn't fool me. The kennel, mean dogs, gatherings back at the barn. I know a dogfighting ring when I see one. I'm thinking we can challenge the white wolf and win Misty back. I scratch Pete's jowls. You can still chomp pretty good, can't you, boy? He's been depressed since Misty left. I pour some beer into his bowl. He slowly laps it up with his big tongue. I wait for the dogfight to start on Wednesday night. I follow the gravel drive past Bo's house to his barn. I cut my lights, kill the engine, and coast in beside the trucks and cars. I put Pete on a leash. He rises up on his hind legs and lunges. I hold back my beast, arms straining, chain wrapped around my hand. My book cover moment. A howl, a whine cuts the air. It comes from inside the barn. It's answered by another howl. They build on each other, a rising chorus. I have a weird urge to join them. The howls aren't wolf or even canine. The howls, I realize, are human. I slide open the door and Pete drags me in. The howling stops. A skinny guy's doing pull-ups from the rafters. A big woman hip-hop dances without music. There's a table with pitchers, funnels, a stainless steel hot pot on a hot plate, scope, herbs, and pill bottles. A man with goggles swirls liquid in a beaker. Everyone has "Hello, my name is" stickers on their chests. Their eyes are glazed. The man closest to me wears camo pants and a greasy mechanic shirt. His sticker says Marty. Marty keeps slicking back his hair with a comb over and over again. We've got some samples left, he says. Get you some. Bo and Misty stand in the middle of the barn beside a chalkboard. His hand rests on her shoulder. She finishes writing something on the board. Her hair is dyed turquoise and pulled back in a ponytail. Everyone in the room is zonked out, in the zone, doing their own thing. Apparently, Misty's thing is creating a business plan for Bo's superior nerve tonic. Benefits listed include instant relief, goat-like stamina, stimulate spirit animal, and sparks inner awakening. Under expansion, she's written the names of a half-dozen flea markets. Pete breaks free. He wags his tail and jumps on Misty. She hugs him and weeps with happiness. He licks her face. I've missed him so much, she says. It hits me. I've just lost my dog. Bo picks up a silver platter of vials off a crate. Welcome to our sales force training, he says. Partake with us. Unleash your inner beast and achieve success. It will cure your dark disease. He offers me a vial of turquoise liquid. What would Jason Velasquez do, I ask myself. WWJD. But Jason has abandoned me, and finally I must ask, what would Dan do? And Dan doesn't have an answer. Dan's never known what to do. But I hope it will turn out okay, like a mistress of the Magi. Misty will wake from her spell under the Dark Lord and return to me. What sets me off is her dyed hair. She was perfect the way she was. Not every hero is a knight. I reach past the vials, grab Bo's braided goatee, and yank it as hard as I can. And we'll stop there. Thank you. Thank you very much. And with that, our one and only director, Leah Stewart.
Hi, thank you for coming. It's a privilege to read with Gwen and Adam, who are such wonderful writers and such wonderful, wonderful colleagues. And of course, I'm so grateful to our fantastic staff without whom we couldn't do this. And it's great to have the faculty get up and thank us over and over, but I just want to take a moment to thank the faculty without whom we couldn't do this either. You're all amazing. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you to all of you for helping make this such a wonderful community experience. I wanted to read something new, so I wrote something. So this is from a new novel that now exists because I wrote this. And all you need to know is that it's the 90s, and the characters are undergraduates at an archaeological field school in Guatemala. After dinner the next night, one of the girls had the idea to do a trust exercise. Her name was Amy, said they needed a good-sized space to do it, so they all trooped out to the helipad, laughing and talking in the pairs and trios that had already formed. Paul found himself walking next to Caroline. He smiled at her but didn't risk speaking. The smile she returned looked like obligation. What was her problem, and why did he feel like it was his problem? He'd never even thought about whether he was at ease with girls before, because he just always had been. But that was home in Lyon. Maybe what was charming in French was very wrong in American. Amy arranged them all in a circle, herself in the middle. She explained the rules. They were going to do trust falls. Trust falls? Paul thought, and she'd go first. Because I'm not a fraidy cat scared baby, Amy said. I'm goddamn Indiana Jones. She rotated inside the circle, pointing, just like all of you. Who could object after that? The point was not just to catch Amy when she fell, but to work together as a group to support her weight as they passed her clockwise from hand to hand. Like crowd surfing, she said, only no stage, no jump, your feet on the ground, and the rest of your body not yours to control. She had a background in theater, she said. She planted her feet with an exaggerated motion, and then without warning or effort, let the rest of her body topple forward into Caroline's. Caroline, perhaps she also had a background in the theater, caught her easily. Amy's cheek rested against her shoulder. Caroline patted her back gently and then passed her to the next person, and so on and forth until Paul found himself responsible. He helped readily with her and with the others who followed, ready at any moment to step forward to support a weight. Alertness was essential. It burned through his jet-lagged fog. Amy already seemed to know everyone's name. On her orders, they went to the center one by one with varying degrees of willingness. They passed the person around until she told them to stop. He saw the point. He really did. He could feel the communal effort forming them into a group. But when he was in the middle, that feeling disappeared. He could not let himself fall. He could not close his eyes and give himself over. He was good at being in groups. In fact, it was his confidence about his social abilities that had led him to believe he could handle this trip. He was completely caught off guard by this freeze-up. It had never happened to him before, though he'd recognized when it was happening to someone else. He tried to make it not true. How disappointing that his legs would not stop bracing against the fall, even as he forced himself into it, that he couldn't keep his feet from shifting to catch himself before someone else could. As hands passed him too quickly, he told himself to relax and landed against soft breasts as if flung there. He opened his eyes and saw Caroline, quickly closed them again. For just a second, she held him like a child, as she had Amy. Somehow the words, "C'est difficile," came out of his mouth. "I know," Caroline said in his ear. She kept a hand on him until after the next person had his full weight. Back on the outside, as 4 or 5 more people made the rounds, he concentrated on watching hands, his own and others, and avoiding eyes. He had failed at trust. Everyone else could do it. They were all American and most from the same school and had perhaps known each other before. Now he was going to have to find some other way to belong. He was going to have to work at it, and he had never learned to do that consciously, wasn't sure he knew how. Worse, he had just made a humiliating request to be mothered to a girl who didn't like him at all. Okay, I think that's everyone. Was that everyone? Amy surveyed the group. People nodded, already beginning to change the shape of the circle, reliving the last half hour and laughing and suggesting Amy come up with another one, someone calling out, "Spin the bottle," and someone else, "Light as a feather, stiff as a board." One girl said, "Not sure Indiana Jones is the best model for group solidarity." "Dude's a loner," another agreed. Paul seemed to be the only one who realized not everyone had gone. He looked at Caroline, who caught him and narrowed her eyes. He wouldn't have said anything, especially not after his own travails, but Amy had seen his glance too. "Caroline," she cried, "you bad girl, you can't get out of this." She clapped her hands and chanted, "Caroline, Caroline," and the others took it up. He saw her hesitate, and for a moment he could have been in her body, so strongly did he feel her urge to flee. But she stepped into the circle without comment or expression. Maybe he'd imagined it. She was facing him when she stepped forward, but then turned around. Before he could brace himself, she fell backward toward him. He caught her, but with some difficulty. She was tall and strong and not light. It would have been harder if she hadn't also caught herself, her knees bending. "Keep your legs straight," Amy cried. "Don't cheat. You've got to really fall." He was in an awkward position, bent forward too far to get proper leverage to move her. He looked at Sean to his right, and the boy grinned and reached to help him, others reaching over too. The next time Caroline came his way as she passed him so quickly, his hand barely grazed her back, her soft t-shirt damp with sweat like absolutely everything else they wore. The third time he got her at an angle, gripping her upper arm and feeling tensed muscle. Her feet wouldn't plant any better than his had. Not one time he touched her did she seem relaxed. He was certain Amy made her circle more times than anyone else, and it was so clear Caroline hated it, but she said nothing. At last Amy said, as she had with the rest of them, "Okay, ease her back to standing." The group obeyed. Some of them had actually gone so limp they'd wobbled when released, but of course Caroline hadn't and didn't. Between jet lag and excitement, he opened his eyes the next morning 2 hours before the 5:30 wake-up. He lay there a long time, uncertain there was any point to getting out of the tent, and then remembering the instant coffee he'd been told to bring and the instructions for boiling water if they were up before the cook. He was sure he would be the only one up. He heard jungle sounds, but no human ones. But when he crawled out of his tent and stood, he saw Caroline making her way back from the side of camp where they dug the women's latrine. There was no reason for this to embarrass him. He turned away and went to the men's side. When he came back, she was boiling water. She didn't say anything. He didn't say anything. She'd boiled enough water for both of them. They stirred their packets of instant coffee into the metal mugs. Then she raised hers and said, "Cheers." Or wait, what did the French say? "Santé." "Santé," she repeated, and brushed his mug with hers. "Not like that," he said. "It is necessary to make eye contact and really, trinquer." "Trinquer?" He demonstrated, taking her hand to bring their mugs more firmly together, looking her in the eye. "Ouch," she said. She put her thumb to her mouth and licked a drop of coffee off it. "Sorry," he said. No, the cultural lesson was worth it." He needed to say something else. "Santé means health." She nodded. "I think Americans used to say to your health. At least I feel like I've seen that in old movies. Perhaps you got it from us." "Maybe so, probably," she shrugged. "Didn't we get a lot of things from you?" "I don't know. What sorts of things?" "Words," she said. She blew on her coffee, sipped, and grimaced. "It isn't good?" "Not particularly. It's instant. And no cream. I like cream." He sipped his own. "Pas mal," he said. "In France, we have these little machines in gas stations with coffee. Do you have those?" "You mean coffee makers? With a pot?" She mimed, picking up a handle. "No, it is a machine with buttons and a small cup. You choose which of them you want." He pressed an imaginary button. "Coffee or espresso or café au lait." "Oh, is it good?" "I like it. It reminds me of being a child. I did not drink coffee yet, but on a trip my parents would anyway let me choose." He paused. would let me choose anyway? She nodded. He wished she would say something more, but she didn't. So he said, I noticed yesterday we are the same. Her eyebrows went up. Uh-oh, eyebrows going up. I only did it once. His English deserted him. You could not fall so easily. Both of us, we moved our feet. We were too tense of falling, for falling. Well, she said. She seemed to make a decision. Somebody passed me to two people at one point, and one of them groped my breast from the side. I opened my eyes. It was either Sean or it could have been Craig. I don't know. And then somebody said, you're cheating. Close your eyes. So I did. Why? I don't know, but I did. The rest of the time it was hard to relax. She demonstrated with the hand not holding the coffee, making a fist just above her breast, pressing her elbow tight to her side. Oh, he said. He'd been the first one to catch her, and she'd been tense even then. I'm sorry, what is grope? She made a squeezing gesture in the air. Grope, she said. I did not grope you, he said, horrified. No, I didn't say you did, but congratulations. How would he describe her expression as she regarded him? He was smart enough not to say that maybe they hadn't meant to do it. In fact, he understood the lesson. He and she were not the same. But he didn't know what to say. She did not seem to want sympathy. She shrugged. Anyway, I hate shit like that. Trust exercises, ropes courses, all that team building crap. It needs to happen because it happens, not because you force it. Ropes courses? It's this thing where you're outside and there's ropes between trees, like 2 ropes, one for holding and one for walking. She laughed at what must have been a look of utter bewilderment on his face. Never mind, it's so stupid, I can't explain it. I don't think we have that, for some reason he added, in France. I don't know much about France, but from what I do know, a ropes course doesn't sound very French. She finished her coffee and left. He replayed the scene several times, trying to purge the sense of unease. She had chosen to turn the conversation away, not him, but he had let her do it, had been relieved when she let him off the hook. It was mid-afternoon, back in camp, drinking tepid Tang on a plastic chair, waiting for his turn to shower, or rather to sit on an identical chair in a stall made of wavy plastic and dump a bucket of water on his head before he saw her again. They weren't paired for excavation, and no one had yet developed the habit of visiting each other's plots, so excited were they to have their own. She hadn't showered yet, and so looked as sweaty and dirty as he. She got a drink, dropped into the empty seat across from his, and slid her feet forward until she was practically lying down. She balanced the heel of one hiking boot on the toe of the other. She had long legs. She dropped her foot back down, and it nudged his. Was that on purpose? He'd been talking to Sean and Craig, who were paired, about the work they'd done that day. He hadn't sought them out. He'd been there first. He'd already been there when they sat down. He noticed Sean look at Caroline, then Craig, with a grin that was like a nudging elbow in Craig's side. Her eyes flicked over them, all 3 of them. Hi there, boys, she said. Patricia and I uncovered a wall today. Sean's grin was gone. You're shitting me. Nope, she said. It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. She downed her drink and got to her feet. Incredible, she said again, before she walked away. But to the air, the sky, the ancestors, not to them. None of them mattered at all. Thank you.